And Chad, you want me to just go? Jazz. I am thrilled to be joined today by Mike Giles, ISU Director of Jazz Studies. Mike, thanks so much for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
Mike, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your career? Kind of how long have you been on the faculty at Iowa State?
This is my 18th year on the faculty here at Iowa State. I teach saxophone, I teach the jazz ensembles, and my wife's also on faculty here. She's been here longer than I have been, and we really enjoy being part of this department and living here in Ames.
Can you talk a little bit about your career outside of Iowa State? I don't really even know, what has been your jazz, your music career?
Yeah, that's a good question. I am a native Iowan. My parents are not musically inclined at all, but were very supportive of what I was trying to do. So I did some of my collegiate studies at a rival institution that will remain nameless.
Nameless indeed.
That's right. And then had the opportunity to teach higher ed in a variety of different places and do some freelance work and touring, and then ended up here in Ames.
What attracted you to jazz music, Mike?
Well, I think what I like about it is that there's a lot of flexibility and space for personalization of what's going on. And it's a comprehensive musical experience, which means to me that so many things are flying like really fast that I find that sensation of euphoria to be just addictive, and I just want to be a part of that action all the time.
That's really cool, and I think as a theater maker, I can certainly understand that. And
Sure.
I sure have become quite a fan of the jazz program over the last few years, and since becoming chair. And really, one of the things that I love about your concerts and your concert programming is that you always theme your work.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the recent concert themes have been the British Invasion and Nutcracker and Music of Madonna and the Art of Magic. And earlier this month, the Jazz One Ensemble presented a concert celebrating LGBTQ Pride Month. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about why you decided to program this concert, Mike.
Yeah, so 3 points. One, I went to the symphonic band concert in the spring, and Christian Carrickner, my colleague, was running that concert, and his focus for the concert was on recycling and reusables. And I thought, man, what a great use of the platform to speak about something that's important. So I wanted to use our platform from the Jazz Nights to emphasize diversity, equity, and inclusion just across campus. Also about, this particular concert, when you theme a concert, it'll help kind of narrow the focus on what to present and what to talk about. And I used to be worried that, I'm going to leave out important things that the students need to learn, or I'm going to neglect something. And there's so much going on out there that you can easily theme stuff and just find things that hit that sweet spot. But I thought it would be good for us to be able to shine a light on infrequently recognized groups of composers and performers. These people have made significant contributions to the music that we do. So it was a cool opportunity and an important one, I think.
Well, as a member of the LGBTQ community, I just want to say how grateful I am for that you lifted up these amazing artists who don't often get represented, and just thrilled to experience it and be a part of it. As always, the jazz concerts feature the big band, preceded by kind of some small jazz combo groups, and this Pride concert was no different. And so we're going to experience some of that great music, and we're going to first experience a selection from the combo group. This is 7.5 by Bill Stewart. can you tell us a little bit about this piece and the composer?
Yeah, sure. This composer is an important drummer on the jazz scene. His name's Bill Stewart, a native Iowan. He went to school at Roosevelt High School. And this tune comes from a record that he made as a leader, which is not a common thing for drummers to do. A record titled Snide Remarks. And the song 7.5 really, as I understand it, addresses the form of the song. It's 7.5 measures long. A traditional blues will be 12 bars long, maybe 16 bars long. A regular song form is often 32 measures long. Right. So everybody kind of gets a chance to settle in and find some comfort within that. But if it's 7.5 bars, it's rolling over really fast. And it's a non-traditional format, so it forces them to think in a different scenario. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's really cool, really exciting, and they play it so wonderfully. Well, we are really grateful to be joined today by two student performers from the Jazz One Ensemble. Lydia Lee is a junior. From the Jazz One Ensemble. Lydia Lee is a junior English and music major who plays piano with the Jazz Ensemble, and Andrew Flory is a senior music education major who plays trombone for Jazz One. Welcome, Lydia and Andrew.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Lydia and Andrew, I wonder if you could just share a little bit about what it's like to be a member of the ISU Jazz Ensembles.
Yeah, something I really love about jazz is that I look forward to it every day. I'm surrounded by a lot of people who really, really care about jazz music, but we don't take ourselves too seriously, and we have a lot of fun. So it's something to look forward to every day.
And Lydia, what do you love about jazz music?
I think I love that jazz is different every time because of the aspect of improvisation. You're able to just put so much of yourself into the music in a really creative way, where every performance and every time we practice a piece, it's different. And I think that's so cool.
Wonderful, yeah. Andrew, how about you? You want to tell us a little bit about your experiences with the Jazz Ensemble?
Yeah, so I've really loved, each group has been kind of dramatically different, even with mostly the same membership. And I really love the contributions everyone has to bring to the ensemble. I think it's a really great chance for us to explore kind of our artistic voices. You know, we have musicians in there that are majors, but we have a lot of non-majors too. And I think their voices deserve to be heard just as much as anyone else's.
Awesome, Andrew. That's great. And something that I really love about the Department of Music and Theater is that, yes, we're training music and theater professionals who are majors and are going to be music education majors, but we are also providing these high impact opportunities for students from throughout Iowa State. And I love to talk about the idea that, like, our students in this department are all the students at Iowa State. And that's really, really cool. What makes the jazz ensembles different than some of the other ensembles that I know the two of you are also work with?
I feel like because it is a smaller ensemble, I feel like there are a lot more opportunities for some really close interpersonal connections. I feel like I've gotten to know each member of the jazz ensemble really personally, and I think it creates this really great sense of like camaraderie and cooperation where we know each other and we're friends with each other. And I think that it's so fun.
I think that's one of the really special things about music and theater is that creating community, and it's something that I celebrate so much about our department.
Yeah, I really just want to second a lot of what Lydia said. I think it's a great, I love every ensemble I've been a part of, but it can be really hard to keep on top of, wind ensemble is 60, 70 kids. We do get to know a lot of the people in the ensemble, but jazz provides an opportunity to get really tight-knit, and I know we have a lot of fun just playing music with each other.
Yeah, it's great. Jam. Get to jam. That's awesome. That was Cole Porter's You'd Be So Nice to Come Home To, played by the Iowa State University Jazz One Ensemble. This is the ISU Music and Theater Radio Hour, and we are listening to some highlights from Jazz One's recent concert celebrating LGBTQ Pride History Month, and talking to the faculty, staff, and students who made this happen. Nicci Port is the Coordinator of Outreach and Community Engagement in the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Iowa State. Nicci consulted on the project and spoke at the event. Nicci, we are so glad that you could join us today as well.
Happy to be here, such a big fan.
Thank you, we're a big fan of you too. And your wonderful office and all the great work that you do for students and faculty and staff at Iowa State. Nicci, during your talk at the Pride event, you mentioned how important your involvement in music was for you during, I think, middle school and high school, and I just wondered if you could share a little bit more about that.
Sure. So being part of school choruses and bands in all of the iterations was really formative for me. There was the obvious outlet for expressing myself creatively, which is what you get through those experiences. Which ultimately taught me that I didn't have to live in any boxes that people were trying to put me in. But beyond that obvious outlet, I recognize now that the importance of the affirmation and validation I got from those experiences and from the people who facilitated those experiences for me. So their gifts allowed an introverted preteen a place to perform their first jazz solo in sunglasses and a blazer borrowed from the back of my dad's closet. And so that was really the first time where I got to express my gender queerness without really even knowing the words behind that. And I'm thankful for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think I had very similar experiences when I found choir and theater in high school, and so I can certainly relate to that as well. I want to turn to our students, Andrew and Lydia, and just kind of ask that question of what role does being involved with music play in your lives?
Yeah, so I mean, it's hard not to kind of sound a little bit like a broken wheel with this, or a broken record with this. But again, just that aspect of expression, there is something to instrumental music that you can't quite achieve with vocal music, I've found. And that's not to say one's better than the other. They're just two very different experiences.
And what you gravitate towards.
Right, yeah. And so, that's been my experience, is it allows me a chance to continue to explore ideas and thoughts that maybe don't have an equivalent in spoken language.
That's beautiful. That's awesome. That's awesome. Lydia, do you want to add to that?
Oh goodness, yeah, that's just beautiful. I'd like to echo a lot of that. I started playing piano when I was 7 years old, and I feel like music has just been this huge shaping force in my life. It's been a lifeline through some of the hardest trials of my life, and it's also been a vehicle for expressing some of my greatest joys. And I'm absolutely convinced that there's nothing else in this world that holds a power quite like music, which is why I just want to spend the rest of my life absolutely immersed in music.
Well, we are grateful that amazing folks like you have chosen a life in music and have chosen the Department of Music and Theater to spend a little time with over the next couple of years. One of the most beautiful pieces, I think, performed at the Pride concert was Star-Crossed Lovers by the amazing Billy Strayhorn. This features a gorgeous piano solo by Lydia Lee. Here is Star-Crossed Lovers. Those were great answers. Thanks. Great job.
Florida, still show.
Yeah. Was Star-Crossed Lovers by Billy Strayhorn. While there is clearly a Romeo and Juliet reference here, as a gay man myself, I can only imagine that Mr. Strayhorn may have had some tragic love stories of his own in mind when writing that piece. Lydia, I wonder if you could just share a little bit about soloing with the jazz band on this piece and others.
Yeah, I feel like soloing and improvisation really is the heart of what jazz is to me and to a lot of people. I feel like it provides this really cool outlet for us to express creativity, and that's something I really love to explore, and I really appreciate any opportunity that I have to work on my improvisational soloing with the jazz band.
I think when I get to go to the concerts, and one of the things that I love about the jazz concerts is so many different people are featured at every concert, and they stand up and there's so much good performance energy. There's so much like wonderful pride in what they're doing and in their work, and so that's really exciting. Mike, is that something you work on with them? Is like not just how to play well, but how to like be up there front and center?
I don't know. I don't know that I work on it with them. I do want to share space for students, so it's not the same kid, handling 4 tunes, because that's a lot of work on somebody, and that's a lot of sitting around for everybody else. But I enjoy improvising, and I take it very seriously, and I put a ton of energy into it every time I do it. So I do that because I believe in that, and I don't know a different way to do it than that. But I do hope that provides a model for the students to refer to as somebody in their midst that's like trying to make that happen as well. So I just try to be encouraging and accepting and try to work with them on that. I do think that the kind of what Lydia was saying here, improvisation is such a huge chunk of this music, and it should be good. So let's try to make it good, right? So what are we doing?
And so one of the things that I reflect on is, and maybe this is coming from my role as chair, is as we've talked about, there are folks in the jazz program that are non-majors, and maybe they're going to go on and play jazz music for the rest of their lives, but maybe they aren't. And I just think about like how valuable of an experience it is to learn how to get up in front of people and improv and perform, and how that's going to lead them, even if they never play music again for the rest of their lives, but how that can translate into their work life and their personal life and their professional life, forever. And it's just such a valuable, high impact experience. So thanks for what you do, Mike, and providing that opportunity for folks.
Sure.
So not only does he lead and teach the jazz band, but Mike composes as well. And Mike, I wonder if you could talk about the piece that you composed for the Pride History concert, DTNM.
Yeah. I have been working on this piece for a while. It's sort of a kind of a collage piece where a couple songs that I had learned were important, and within the LGBTQIA plus community were Somewhere Over the Rainbow by Harold Arlen, and then also Somewhere by Leonard Bernstein from West Side Story. And I thought about the text that was on the lyrics for those songs and excerpt certain spots of the songs and just kind of wrote them down on a piece of paper with no rhythm or anything, just kind of did them all in one key and showed the different note groupings and the text around that. And then I tried to build melodies fusing these two things together, different parts of songs with the other part of the song. And then I got kind of carried away a little bit and used some other things from West Side Story, other text moments that I thought were valuable, not just Somewhere. Sorry to Harold Arlen that I didn't dig into more of his stuff, but there was a lot to find in the Bernstein work. So I just kind of put those things together and then built some solo sections out of the harmonies that are part of the songs. As I worked on this stuff, I don't know, it's going to sound ridiculous, but like when I remember hearing about Michelangelo, when he would work on sculpting, he would approach the stone and the stone would kind of reveal itself to him. And then he was basically releasing the sculpture from the stone. It's certainly not on par with that at all, but sometimes the rhythms of the melodies just need to be those rhythms because that's just what they need to be. And the form for the solo section just needs to be that form. And I apologize ahead of time because it's not just 4/4 and 8 bars and very consumable chunks of material. But when I get a chance to work with it with talented students, I am so grateful that they're willing to dive in there with me and they're willing to try stuff. And so it's so fun and it's really rewarding.
Well, it's just awesome to hear about your process, Mike, and that process of the artist, and I would imagine that that's going to be an exciting thing for our community to hear about as well. And so, well, we have our own Michelangelo here, Michelangelo Giles, as it were, and his original rendition from DT and M. That was DT&M, composed by Director of Jazz Studies and performed by the ISU Jazz 1 Ensemble. Mike, what does DT&M stand for?
Oh yeah. So a lot of people were trying to guess. My parents were trying to guess. My parents had actually guessed Miles Davis, Thelonious Monk, and they couldn't think of somebody else, some jazz person that had the M in there. But it is D is for Dorothy, T is for Tony, and M is for Maria, the main
It's not Dorothy and
characters.
Toto.
It is not
Not Dorothy and
Toto's
Toto.
Okay.
small role for Toto.
But for Wizard of Oz and
yeah, for the
West
main
Side
characters.
Story.
Yeah, that's right.
I love it. I love it. I love both of those so much. I'm going to come back to Nikki here. And Nikki, as a member of the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Iowa State, I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about what it means for the campus and the greater community to have music and theater events like this celebrating Pride History Month.
Well, I think what comes to mind for me right away is particular to this event. The obvious to me would be that shining a light on LGBT artists, musicians, composers can do a number of things. Number one, it affirms the existence of the LGBT community in a society that often tells us, get back in the closet, you're not real, or that we aren't who we say we are. And secondly, it can teach people something that they might not know. I think for some people in the audience, it might have been the first time they heard somebody say they were genderqueer. And so, or it might teach people more about something that they know just a little bit about.
Right.
So for some people in the audience, they might have been like, oh, my kid is gay, but I don't know what she's talking about right now.
Yeah.
And so that can be cool too. Also, it's just a tangible example of how the Department of Music and Theater values DEI and commits to equity and inclusion, and that's a huge thing beyond words on a page that we often see. People's mission statements, speeches, etc. You're actually living it by having events like this, and that's really cool. So we may not ever know all of the meaning that people made from this performance or from other things that the Department of Music and Theater do. But in general, anything that provides visibility, like a performance like this, for communities that are underrepresented can lead to good things. And so as people see maybe for the first time the diversity of the community that is brought out when we have events like this, when they see that, they might be motivated to learn more. And then when they learn more, they might be more motivated to act. And so from visibility comes motivation, comes action. And then ultimately, if you're doing impactful, positive things with your action, it makes Ames and Iowa State a better place to be. And so that's kind of the broad,
Right,
I mean,
sure.
I could rattle off a whole bunch of things. Like probably from that performance, you have people in the audience who are like, I'm going to this school because they care about the LGBTQ community. I know you had a former student with this class
Right.
that was there. Some of those students might be, oh, this place is dope, I'm going there. So there's all those other things that we may never know about until.
I'd also like to just jump on that for a second. I like the fact that the students that performed in the concert had maybe their first time to be a part of a performance that represented something bigger than just the music that they're doing, and that may call them to be more actively involved in something that they believe in, if it's this, if it's something else. It's not just let's roll out the balls and play the show.
Right.
It's we can do more than we're doing. So I hope that gives just that initial seed can maybe blow into something bigger for them.
And for people who love these artists, these great American songbook artists, to be like, oh, I did not know that about that person, but I love their music.
Right.
It's a lot. I mean, I liken that to the kid who comes out to their parents that, oh, I know and love you, and now I know this new thing about you, and I still love you.
Absolutely.
And that can be
that
impactful.
awareness leads to acceptance, and et cetera. Lydia and Andrew, I just wonder if you could talk about a little what it means to you to be a part of a concert like this.
For me, it's really like Nikki was saying, it's a very important performance to have happen. I know personally, a lot of people that I care a lot about in my life are queer in some capacity. And so, I can't relate on a personal level in that sense, but I'm biracial. I come from a mixed household. And so I can respect and appreciate the value of seeing yourself represented, seeing people like you doing the things you want to do. I think a concert like this, while it is important for all folks in the LGBTQIA community, I think is doubly important for musicians in the queer community.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, absolutely. Adding on to that, I think something that I really enjoyed was the process of, as a musician in the band, learning the pieces, learning about the composers, just really like uplifting the stories of these people in the LGBTQIA plus community, learning about the obstacles that they overcame, the way that they were able to create this really beautiful music in the face of all of these obstacles that they were facing. And I think it was, for me, just really, really cool because I learned so much.
Super cool. It's like, that's like liberal arts education in action right there. Super awesome. And I'm just excited, as Nikki said, of one of the new strategic plans from the president's office is for Iowa State to be the most inclusive campus possible, and I think that I'm really proud of us and excited for us to support doing events like this. And so thank you again to the Jazz program for doing this great event, and thanks to Nikki for being a part of it. With that, let's listen to our final selection from the concert, I Am by Omar Thomas, once again. Wow, what a spectacular finale, what a fantastic event. The Department of Music and Theater is so honored and grateful to produce events like this, that not only provide great entertainment, but also spark conversation, support, and inspire our community. Mike, what's coming up next for the Iowa State Jazz Bands?
I wrote them down.
Good.
November 11th, Jazz One will rise up from the platform at Stevens Auditorium and play some songs, and we'll feature a vocal performance by Sophia Pike.
Fantastic.
She was singing with us over at the Order of the Knoll celebration last weekend, and sounds great. We're gonna have her be a part of that. On the 16th of November is a jazz night that I have titled Mounties and Maple Syrup. But I don't know. I don't know if I'll keep that. I don't know. But it's Canadian jazz, so it's all these different artists and performers from Canada that have made contributions. We're going to play their stuff. On the 18th, Jazz 2.0, my original big band here at Iowa State, is joining me for a presentation on how to work with your solo sections over at the IMEA conference. That's when they have a big all-state blowout and all that kind of stuff. So they'll troop over there, live performance and presentation on a Lee Morgan tune entitled Opus Focus. And then Jazz One, which includes Andrew and Lydia, will be playing their concert on November 30th. It is NKOTB, New Kids on the Block, Vault. No, hold on, Nikki.
Wait, you can't.
I have
You
three
can't
people I need to text.
You can't tease me with some possible hanging tough and then take it away.
It's just it's volume 2 of a series of new composers.
Oh, well, that's
writers
good.
who are
That's
new
good.
to the scene that need to have some of their visibility raised within the Midwest.
But someday maybe we'll get some
Someday.
step by step.
Jordan, he's on my speed dial. I'm trying to get him to do a master class here. We'll see.
Okay, that sounds good. Awesome. Well, that sounds like a very exciting lineup for the jazz bands. Well, Mike, Nikki, Lydia, and Andrew, thank you all so much for helping to make this event such a super cool success, and thank you for joining me today for this conversation.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
This has been the ISU Music and Theater Radio Hour on KHOI.